Good morning. Firstly, let me apologize for not being here today. As you all know, I am on my holidays. I'm probably just catching my flight to a sunny Crete. However, before I can go there, it is some serious work to do. So let's get started. My main responsibility is to produce two major files. First, group reporting Hyperion consolidated live version of Node 2.1, i.e. revenue, and group reporting Hyperion consolidated live version of Node 2.2, i.e. capital. I'll be referring to these files through my presentation, so please share printouts if you haven't done so yet. The main purpose of both of these files is to reconcile management accounts, meaning budgets, with financial accounts produced by our accounts team. When the reconciliation file is correct and fully working, we get it audited and use it to produce annual report tables, which you can see on pages 22, 25, 26, 27, and 30. But the most important purpose of both of these files are to ensure that no tools produced by the accounts team using Hyperion consolidation system is correct, which means that only when we are sure that the data is right, we send it to audit and actually get it in the final accounts. As an example for my presentation, I will be using Node 2.1 reconciliation file. However, Node 2.2 is produced on the same basis. So let's look how do we actually arrive at this brilliant reconciliation. I'm going to start with the local data, this one, which fills the GR local budget control box in the Node 2 rec. Please see your printouts, box rounded pink. So firstly we get inputs from NHS. PCTs, SHAs and trusts submit their consolidated and audited accounts via FIMS. It's three separate sets of accounts which are consolidating each sector. Then me and David C are taking this information and converting it to Node 2s. Then we are happy with our numbers. We go to Jill and reconcile it to her dispo. Because dispo is just a different view on the same data. However, bottom lines have to reconcile. When we actually reconcile with Jill and we are happy about our numbers, we feed the bottom lines to this reconciliation file, the lines highlighted orange. Secondly, I get the ALV summary file, also known as high-level review, from Quentin, which is a summary of the ALV audited consolidated schedules. So how this all happens is, we have inputs from ALVs, so FTs, NDPDs, specials, and Skipton Fund are submitting their consolidated and audited schedules, which Quentin then converts to the high-level view, which is, as I just said, is a summary of those schedules. Then I'm taking, me and Aisha on capital are taking this high-level view summary and converting it to the Node 2s, the same format as the NHS ones which I just talked about. When we are happy about our numbers, we are again feeding this, the bottom lines to this reconciliation file, and those are all highlighted in green. Thirdly, I get the RDL tracker from David Butler, which is used to populate lines highlighted in blue. All what I've just said probably sounds straightforward to you, just taking data from one place, converting it and putting the bottom lines into the reconciliation file. However, usually data keeps changing until the very last minute. So therefore, we have to update our local records accordingly, which requires constant clear communication between the team members and attention to the detail. Let's now move on to the next section in this reconciliation file called HR from HFM notes. Please refer to your printouts, but I'm talking about this box rounded in yellow. Individual node views feeding into this box are constructed using Hyperion consolidation system. We use various accounts nodes produced by Hyperion to construct individual node views for each sector. However, there are sometimes some items which we can't unpick from nodes in the accounts, such as ring fence numbers, PFI budgeting adjustments, credit guarantee finance, CIFA, stuff like that, all the technicalities. Therefore, we use the local data, VIMs, BMS, ALB consolidated schedules to fill these gaps. Finally, if you look at this reconciliation again, the box called the HFM node 2 rounded in blue, these two, they are actually the same. These are actual node 2s from the Hyperion. Each line is taken from individual sectors' node 2s in their accounts. Therefore, it is very important to get this box right, because this is the data which is feeding into the consolidated DH accounts. This is the actual node 2 which is in the actual accounts book. You can also see the last line in this box, this one, which is a check if the individual node 2s are adding up for the consolidated position. All the other boxes in this reconciliation file are for the indication of the differences between different views. So for example, this box here compares the actual node 2 and the node 2 constructed from the nodes into the accounts in the Hyperion. This box is the EHR local view, so our dispo, our high-level view position, our David Butler's tracker versus the actual node 2s into the accounts. Once we get all of these boxes right, so showing us zeros or varying material differences, that is our happy day when we can say that the node 2 work is actually finished. So now we briefly went through the construction of the reconciliation file, the methodology. So let's talk about the problems I face when doing this freeway reconciliation. Firstly, when we get final data from the NHS, usually not the organization submit their contribution at a set deadline, which makes the sector consolidated position incomplete. Therefore, we have to review the node 2 several times to incorporate all the data, which is actually quite time consuming. Secondly, as I mentioned before, not all the data required to build node 2s are available in Hyperion nodes, so we have to use the local data to fill the gaps. However, sometimes it is hard to say what we're actually missing, as this year's example could be local PPEs. It took us quite a long time to figure it out. And thirdly, even if we know that the difference or so-called mistake is actually in Hyperion, we can't always tell where exactly it is. What I mean is that numbers in Hyperion are actually usually the combination of different elements. However, we only have a front sheet's access. So we see only the front sheet, the smart views of the data. So it is hard to tell which component is incorrect. Hopefully, we will be able to access insights of the Hyperion after developing new system. However, I think it is a threat of another potential problem. It's too many cooks. Because if everybody gonna access Hyperion's insights and gonna start making adjustments, we can actually completely ruin it. And finally, some differences are caused by elimination exercise, and they disappear themselves once the exercise is complete. However, we can't say that straight away, and sometimes we waste quite a significant amount of time trying to understand where the difference is coming from, and eventually just disappears itself. So, we already talked about the problems, so let's now talk about the improvements we can make. We have already improved a lot compared to our last year's and this year's performance. However, I believe that we can do even better. I have constructed an extract from the full version of the Hyperion nodes to pick up only the information relevant for the node 2's construction. which we used this year, and it was quite successful. This allowed us to make the process quicker, helped us to avoid the relinking of the worksheets once the version of the notes have changed, and gave us better view of the notes as everything was located in one workbook instead of going through separate sectors and separate tabs in the file. However, I think it would help us if we would try to automate the note building process. I know that this idea has been already suggested by somebody and it's not new, and I believe we should definitely try it. What I mean is that we could build our own smart view using codes and other parameters which are used in the other notes. So this would save us time which we use to manually link Hyperion notes into the Note 2 template. So what I mean is just instead of relinking everything manually, we should have a smart view which does it automatically using codes and other parameters. Also, if we use Hyperion for dispo construction, it should reduce amount of differences in the reconciliation exercise, because the data extracted from the same system will be, or at least should be, consistent and the same. So it should help us to reduce amount of time we spend reconciling and looking for problems. So finally, as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, group reporting Hyperion consolidated version of Note 2.2, i.e. capital, is constructed using the same methodology as the revenue, which I just explained. The only difference is that Aisha is helping us out with construction of local Note 2s, and I'm reconciling to the capital dispo instead of Jill's revenue dispo. So, I hope you have enjoyed the presentation, and it all fits well with what our colleagues already said. And any questions? Oh wait, you can't ask any questions because I'm on holidays. So if any, ask Scott. Bye!